Well, thank you guys for coming today. This is our third week. This is Lee French, my wife. She is a therapist here in the city. She works in Green Hills, and she's going to be talking about warning signs and other things that we look for as far as taking care of our employees here in the hospitality industry. So take it away.
Awesome. This feels really formal, so I apologize for feeling so distant from you, but I feel like I have to be here for this camera. Um, well, as he introduced you, I'm Lee French. I'm a licensed social worker, and I currently work in private practice in Green Hills. I see adults, mostly 18 and up, usually 25 and up is my preference, who are navigating kind of a myriad of social, emotional, mental health concerns. I graduated from Auburn with a degree in sociology and my master's in clinical social work from NYU in 2012 and have been licensed since then as a social worker. Um, I've worked all over the mental health map. So I worked in domestic violence work, I did child abuse prevention work, I did grief, loss, and bereavement work. I've worked in adolescent care, and I've worked in religious systems, doing religious systems work, and now a return to private practice in Green Hills. So I see it all now, all the time. I love social work. I'm like a tried and true social worker. I have been a social worker since I was 5. Not a licensed and credentialed one, but I've always been the raising money, raising awareness, the justice girl. So social work is, I feel very much in my blood. Um, so I'm obviously really biased about this topic and what Herschel is doing, but I think it's really, really critical. And so I think it's a gift that you guys are here to kind of learn and lean into signs of mental distress in your employees, and on your teams, in your areas of influence. So let's get into it. I wanted to share with you first. I'm a big research girly. I don't know about you guys, but it's really important for me to have like evidence-based stuff when I'm giving a presentation like this, or even when I'm making assumptions myself. So I wanted to tell you about the survey that was done in 2010 by an organization called Ripple in the UK. And they did it, did I say 2010? They did it in 2024. So it's a very recent study. They surveyed 2010 employees in the hospitality and nightlife industry in the UK. So there will be some variation, obviously, culturally, politically, socially, but I think really poignant stuff came from their survey. And they did this in promotion of World Suicide Prevention Day last year. They wanted to get some statistics about what was happening in the nightlife and hospitality field, specifically with mental health. This is what they found, and I think this is so interesting. So, nearly 60%, 59 point something percent of hospitality workers report experiencing mental health conditions while at work. Okay, so that's a majority, right? Additionally, 1 in 2 hospitality workers have reported having thoughts of suicide, self harm, or other harmful and negative thoughts. 1 in 2, 50%, right? And then 85% of hospitality professionals have reported experiencing symptoms of poor mental health, such as disturbed sleep, anxiety, depression. And then 66% of employees that were surveyed said they experienced poor mental health, and they suggest that their job is the main catalyst of that stress, right? So, this is not a surprise probably to you in this industry. These are often attributing factors in nightlife and hospitality: long work hours, right? High stress environments. We were just talking about Post Malone and all the chaos that was downtown. And if you think about that being on a regular basis, it's a lot, right? A work hard, play hard mentality, and unpredictability in terms of short notice shifts and changes in the industry, right? So a lot to juggle there. So how you show up as employers for your employees plays a vital role, obviously, in a company's success, a bar's success, a restaurant, an agency's success. And it shapes well-being, which shapes your productivity and your retention as an organization. So it's huge. This is so important, right? So the goal is, I just want to equip you. I want us to discuss the knowledge to identify warning signs of the mental distress that's happening, particularly with workers in the hospitality industry. And how do you respond supportively? What is your role? What is your responsibility? So we're going to talk about that. Stress, normal. You have it. I have it. But distress that impacts function requires attention. So stress that impacts function requires attention. This is not, and I will say this multiple times, this is not about diagnosis, right? It's about noticing and connecting. And I'm passionate about this because I think this is actually what the world needs in general, right? Is for us to notice each other, to be aware of each other, and to connect with each other, right? That's not a nightlife or a hospitality industry thing. That's just a social wide, culture wide thing that we really, really desperately need. So, not about diagnosis, it's about noticing and connecting with people. So I'm just going to go over, and you've probably seen more of these, and I'm going to give you a chance to tell me, but these are some of the things that you might notice that are the most visible and quantifiable changes that someone experiences when they're in mental distress, okay? So, attendance and punctuality, right? Increased tardiness, absenteeism, more frequent use of sick days or mental health days. One caveat: obviously this changes generationally, right? My mom is of the generation that, like, you go to work, you don't really take your days off, you don't really take your vacation, you don't take sick days, right? If you were going to ask somebody who's Gen Z, they're going to say maximize every opportunity to be off work. We're going to take every day that we can possibly take and see if we can stretch another, right? So there is the caveat there, and it's important to keep that in mind when you're noticing things like punctuality and attendance. Also, you might notice productivity decline, right? Missed deadlines, increase in error, a noticeable drop in the quality and the volume, the amount of work someone is able to do. So, attendance and punctuality, productivity decline. Also, social withdrawal, isolation from colleagues, right? Eating lunch alone, skipping team meetings. Maybe you have social events that they used to come to and participate in, be excited about, and they're not anymore, right? Changes in the way that they communicate. So becoming unusually quiet, snapping at colleagues, being overly aggressive, defensive, these responses in maybe like emails or meetings, right? Or hopefully not, but with customers or people that are coming into your business. I want to make one caveat about that in just a second, but the other thing is appearance and energy. So significant changes in grooming and personal hygiene. This is something I note every single time I sit with a client, every day, back to back with clients. One of the first things I write in their session note is their appearance, right? Not because I care what they're wearing or what they look like, because if I'm noticing changes over time, hey, in 6 sessions, we've lost or gained a considerable amount of weight, or they look unkempt, right? Do they have the resources that they need? It's something I want to pay attention to because it is an indicator of what's going on inside that sometimes they can't give language to, right? So, the caveat, that the tip I want to give is that we should focus on sudden or sustained deviation, okay, from an employee's typical baseline. So, what this doesn't mean is that we leave this meeting and we think about Grumpy Mary, who you hired, and Mary is just grumpy, and she's always been grumpy, and you hired Mary Grumpy. I say Grumpy Mary because my best friend's name is Marion. She's kind of grumpy. But you hire Grumpy Mary, and that's just who Mary is. She's just kind of, but she gets work done. People respect her. People know what to expect, right? Well, we don't need to now go to Mary and be like, I've noticed you've been really grumpy, right? Mary's just kind of grumpy. That's who Mary is, right? But if you were noticing someone else who's that's not their typical baseline behavior, right? Then that's what we want to pay attention to when there's deviation from the norm, right? So you're not looking at someone's personality and going, there's something wrong here, right? But something that has changed drastically. This is basic. I know that you all know this. So those were some of the behavior things that might change. From an emotional and physical manifestation, I will sometimes use the word somatic presentation, where they feel it or show it in their body that they're in distress. So maybe less obvious, but still as critical of an indication that something is going on. Physical complaints, so frequent, vague complaints like persistent headaches, stomach issues, muscle pain, often leads to calling in, or leaving early. This is important because if you think about a kiddo specifically who's going to the school nurse and they are saying over and over and over again, that they have a stomach issue, right? For a lot of times for kids, it's going to show up in their body before they're going to be able to articulate it. And the nurse is going to go, I think there might be something else going on besides a tummy ache, right? So it's important that you notice, hey, this is the 5th time you've left because your stomach hurts. What is there something else going on here, right? Emotional outward signs, increased irritability, frustration, appearing tearful or overly sensitive. I don't know if y'all can relate, but I've been in seasons like this at work where like I've been overly sensitive to things that typically wouldn't bother me, right? And it's just a sign of that something bigger and deeper that's going on, right? Showing a lack of interest in things that they typically enjoyed at work. Focus and memory, right? So difficulty concentrating every moment of every day for me. Seeming distracted, having trouble remembering instructions or details of a project. That's an indicator, right? Something's going on. Changes in their habits. Notable increase in caffeine intake, alcohol intake, smoking, right? Bringing up or referencing that they're having difficulty sleeping, right? Changes in appetite. Again, when I'm writing a note, any indication that I haven't slept well over a period of time, all of those things I'm writing down because that is a message to me that there's something else going on, right? So the physical symptoms typically have no clear medical cause. So we want to rule that out, that this is not they're going through something. Obviously, when you're working with women who reach a certain age, there's perimenopause symptoms, right? That's just an example. And so you're not wanting to rush to things that could be related to something else. That's why you want to notice, be aware, and ask good questions, right? Okay, so what do you do? When you see all of these things, you've got this information. What's the actionable tip here? How do you respond? So I want to tell you, and I want to give you a chance to kind of show me what you would do. So the way, obviously, that you approach an employee is critical to how what resolve is going to be reached in this situation. Now, that does not mean that you bear all the responsibility and what happens, but it is a critical piece. So you want to focus on objective information, focus on performance and observation, not diagnosis. So you are not and should not be stepping in the role of a therapist, a clinician, a PCP, a psych provider. Not your role, and you want to stay far from that for liability reasons. I feel sure the HR would want you to do that. So before you have the conversation, the most critical thing is that you have it in a neutral space. So this is not something that you're saying across the bar to them while they're on shift. This is not something you're saying in front of other employees. This is not something that, like, in a meeting, you're drawing attention to someone's specific behavior. This is, I'm pulling you to a neutral, calm, comfortable space, and I'm giving you objective information. I'm giving you really specific things. This is critical, I think, especially in the hospitality industry, because oftentimes I think you may hear complaints that look like, I noticed they go to the manager, so-and-so's been doing this, or so-and-so, right? You haven't seen it for yourself, but someone else has told you. I would say when you've heard that, you should put eyes on the situation, either through another trusted employee if you're not there on the ground, or you actually need to get eyes on it. Because when you give the information, it needs to be reportable in a way that makes sense, and it's not gossip or hearsay, right? And it's rid of all the things that could come with hearsay, right? Okay, so this is super easy to remember. Nothing deeply scientific about this, but it's called the CARE approach, so you can remember it. C, connect. Start with genuine concern. Hey, I've noticed some changes. I just want to check in with you because I care about your well-being. Not, I want to check in with you because we're losing money, right? Like, this is because there's a general, like, I genuinely care about the person in front of me. Then A, so C is connect. A, ask. Use open-ended, non-judgmental questions like, how could I best support you right now? Not, hey, are you depressed? Right? Different language. So that's connect, ask, refer. Refer, refer, refer. This is huge. Point your employees to available resources. So this is your boundary. Do not counsel. Direct them to maybe an employee assistance program, right? I get a lot of my clients from Vanderbilt's EAP system because they've gone there, they've met their quota that they're allowed, and they need to go on to more therapy, right? So check in with HR, other company benefits, the things that y'all were just telling me about, the big table and, Biscuit Love, these resources that people have given you, you're wanting to point them there. Again, not diagnose them, try to treat them, unless you are like the manager at Biscuit Love and are a clinician. That's a little bit different. You want to be prepared, obviously, for expecting a response and escalating. So we've got connect, ask, refer, and expect a response and escalate. So be prepared for various reactions they could have. And nobody really loves to feel called out, even though it might come from a really gentle and caring place. There can be defense, tears, silence, shutdown. So document the conversation and follow up on what are the next steps? What do you feel like is appropriate? Do I need to refer them to therapy? Do I want to refer them to HR? Do I want to put them on a PIP, like some kind of, program where they can improve this over time with your support? So connect, ask, refer, escalate, follow up, really. Okay. It is not your job, again, to be therapist. It's just to notice, express concern, and then connect them with a resource. So we're stressing the importance of confidentiality, and we're adhering to your own company's privacy policies, right, which differ. So just to recap, I want you to briefly notice the three things kind of that we talked about. Notice deviation, right? This isn't just Grumpy Mary being Grumpy Mary, right? There's something else going on, right? And I would say, for me, I would want to observe that over maybe a little bit of time. This isn't something that I've noticed day one and I'm talking about on day two, right? I want to really follow through. Everybody has bad days. My kid got in a fight with their sibling in the car this morning, and by 8:30 I had a message from the teacher, right? Like, there are things that just affect our day, and that's just how they happen, right? And we're just gonna have a bad day, or every day if you're my kid. But sometimes that just happens. We want to assess this over time. So important. And then focus on performance and behavior, and then refer to resources. So you got to know what the resources are. So that is your work to find what specific resources exist in your company and are beneficial to your specific employees or group or agency or whatever. Okay? A supportive, observant leader is an asset to the company's health and culture. You know that. And so proactive identification saves you time and it saves you money, truly, as an organization. Here's the thing, as a caveat, if we look at, people often ask me, like, how are you a therapist in today's society? Like, there's just so much to be, it's a lot, right? Like, what do you say? The answer is, like, there isn't an answer. There isn't, it's really, really hard, right? Because some of the stress that people come in, there's no tool, there is no theory, polyvagal theory. There is no nervous system reset that you can do to get over the fact that we're surrounded by things like school shootings on a regular basis, right? So it is important to keep in mind that there are also cultural, political, social things happening that influence these. It's not just a matter of there's abuse taking place, there's trauma taking place. Certainly, we want to notice those things to alert us to that, but just to be aware that, like, on 11/1, there will be people who don't get their benefits, right? There's the potential that they won't get their SNAP benefits or whatever. There's a lot of talk of that, and that is going to impact their mental health, right? You may not have a solve for that, but it's important for you to, like, be aware to insulate that people are coming in with really, really heavy stuff. So that is just a caveat. I don't know if any of you guys like podcasts, but I have some podcast recommendations for you. And I will happily just show you this page that you can take a picture. But there are some really great ones. I don't know if you've heard of Adam Grant, but he does a podcast called Work Life. And he has a lot on burnout, quitting, workplace motivation. And I just think he's a stellar communicator. And so I highly recommend his. There's one called Beyond the Checkbox, which focuses sort of on future proofing organizations by championing mental health in workplace settings. So there's quite a few here. I'm happy to let you take a picture just so you can reference those. But I thought something that we could do is split into two groups. So You guys can be together. Girls versus boys. It's not a competition. But I'm going to give you two scenarios. I'm going to give you two different scenarios. I've got scenario 1 and scenario 2. So these are situations with people in a hospitality or nightlife industry, and we're going to observe some things, and then I just wanted you to kind of answer what would you do. Okay, so I'm going to hand these out to you. Y'all are going to be scenario 1, which is the burned out bartender. So y'all group together. Might feel very real. And then you guys are going to be the withdrawn kitchen lead. Okay. So y'all talk and discuss who you are seeing. I think there's 2 there. I'll give you about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll talk about these. Yeah, a little clue, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk these out. Y'all got some good feedback over here. I don't want us to miss it because I think there's some good stuff happening. I can't hear y'all. I'm sure there's great stuff happening here too. Um, So let's go first with the scenario with the burned out bartender. So y'all don't have that. So let me tell you what's going on, okay? So Alex is a bartender who has been a reliable, high energy star employee at your popular, high volume late night venue for 2 years. Okay, over the past month, you've noticed significant change in Alex's behavior and performance. First note, you have noticed over the past month. That's a considerable amount of time for you to notice that something has changed. Remember, he's been there 2 years. This is a deviation over a certain period of time, okay? So here's what's happening. They used to be early. Now they're frequently 5 to 10 minutes late for their shift, looking noticeably disheveled, tired. They recently called out sick with a vague illness on a Friday night, a night they never miss, right? Which would have high impact to your business. Alex's meticulous approach to bar organization is gone. They've made several costly errors on tickets, seem to be moving slower when a customer snaps at them. Alex's usual calm and professional demeanor cracks. They respond with uncharacteristic irritability or a flat, unengaged, low affect stare. Alex, who used to joke with the door staff and linger for a drink after their shift, now puts their head down, avoids eye contact with colleague, and races out the back door immediately when clocking out. What are you noticing? What are the immediate signs of distress?
Just the drop in, the drop in performance of it, showing up late.
Yeah.
The engagement with the guests has changed. Those are important indicators. The one seems like we really put our finger on was the isolation too. That seemed important, right? Like separating yourself from the colleagues. And then what was the main one that we said? There was a different one. Right. The irritability towards the guests and customers.
Totally.
Great reflection.
So you've got 4 or 5 concrete, objective things, right, that you can approach Alex with when it's time to have a conversation. How are you going to have that conversation? What's important about having that? Like, how are you going to do it?
That was the main point of discussion we had.
Yeah.
Trying to disrupt the shift that Alex did arrive for. That's the hard part.
Sure.
The hospitality. Because they have to spend the next 8 to 12 hours on the stage. And so that's the challenge we face the most in this industry. Have these conversations without throwing Alex into a position of being attacked or cornered.
Right before he starts a shift, right? Or even right after when he needs sleep. And I would ask you, tell me your name? Chris. It sounded like by people's, you're in the bar industry, or you were?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so you know a little bit about this. This makes sense to you, right? So I would ask you, as this is not my career, is like, Alex probably work another job? Okay, so there's the potential that also, like, even if you were to do this off shift, that Alex might not be available to have a conversation like this, right? So that's a tricky part too, is when he's not here, he's meeting other needs, right?
Another thing we surfaced is like what you mentioned of not crossing the line and becoming the therapist.
Right.
That seems like a complicated construction there because by cornering, not necessarily cornering them, but by approaching them after work or before work, are dancing down. So looking for further explore how all that would work.
Yeah. Anybody have suggestions on how that would work and how you could teeter that line in a way that's careful?
I just had a situation, and I was able to do what I think able. I have a friend in the industry, and I know her life kind of split right now. Well, I actually picked up the phone and asked her to be able to refer her to this organization rather than just refer her. I had the conversation with her and kind of became that friend more than. Never worked with me, but even if she was an employee, I would try to build that trust with her. Have those conversations and just have general conversations of where she's at in life and what's going on, and check up, and then being able to refer them. They're not a therapist. Can't help you recognize that there's things going on, but
Yeah, totally. The first conversation we had in social work school at NYU, I'll never forget, in our like convocation or invocation, I think they were like, if you're here to be the hero, like you're in the wrong place. And I remember being like, okay, I kind of did. Like I kind of was here for that. This is like hero school. Tell me what to do, right? And it's so true. Like the goal is not for me to fix, right? The goal is social work, especially, is I am the Brit, like I'm the connector. What can I offer to get you to the next spot? I love the consent piece, right? Because not everybody is going to want help in the way that you think that they need it. That comes with a little bit of superiority. I know what you need. Let me tell you, and you go do it, right? We want to avoid that if we can, of like, hey, I've noticed this. Are you noticing that you've been doing this too? Am I wrong? I say that to my clients as curiosity. So when we're working with couples, right? Instead of going and being like, you talk to me like such and such, right? Or you did this to me, right? Saying, did you notice that when I said this thing that you responded with that tone? Did I misinterpret that? Or was there something behind that? That's a curious approach. I want to learn. I want to know, not a judgmental, assumptive, hey, you were a total jerk to me. Correct it, right? That maybe you were. But that's not what we're going for. We're going for understanding. Remember, we are trying to connect. And connection doesn't look like, hey, you better get your crap together and go to this counselor because you're driving down my business. That's not what connection looks like. So I love the piece about consent. I think that's so. Do I have your permission to suggest a few things or to make a call on your behalf? Right? I love that. One thing that you said was that you were expected to be HR. There wasn't HR. So I think that's really, really critical because in the information I gave you, we are assuming that there is a structure and system in place, right? And the reality is, not even in nightlife and hospitality, there isn't one, right? What is an EAP, right? What does that even mean? What assistance can I get, right? And so you're having a 22-year-old leading an 18-year-old trying to figure out how to resource them, right? So again, it goes back, I think, deeply, deeply to the relational aspect of the job. Hey, I've noticed this, right? Could I chat with you for like 15 minutes in the middle of your shift? Now, you got to work on, is somebody covering where you're supposed to be? Like there's logistics involved there, but being really creative about how could we have this conversation right in the back, right? Hey, I'm not an expert in this, but this is something I've noticed about you, right? This is something I've noticed, and I just want to check up on you. I just want you to know I'm here, like I'm with you. And hey, you're doing a great job. You are one of the lead people, right? Alex is one of the lead people. You've been here for 2 years. We've done such good work with you, right? I just want to make sure there's not something else going on. If there's any way I can support you, right? Go ahead.
I think that's really nice to get to have, like, to want that just because, like, I've worked in restaurants and I've had it where, like, they've noticed something off with me and they're like, well, we've heard that you're telling people that this place is bad for your mental health. Should you even be here if it's that bad? And then it kind of forces discussion. Like, I have to be here. Like, I have a family to take
Right,
care of.
right.
It's like, yeah, but I had pointed out to him, I said, I haven't gone around and said that. Have people observed that it looks like this place is bad for my mental health and I'm hurting here, that I'm uncomfortable, that I'm worried all the time, that I'm stressed out. So, like, if managers or people would just have a little bit of kindness, be like, instead of, well, you're doing this. Like,
Yeah.
don't be here if it's that bad.
Curiosity.
I need to. I need to.
Yeah, curiosity, compassion, calm, connection, right? That's what we're looking for. And seeing the person in front of you, right? So I'm not coming in with an accusation that everybody says, right? That's not objective. That's not objective information. That is gossip. That is hearsay, right? But hey, I've noticed this, and like, I know this job is really important to you. Maybe not because you love it, but because you have to have it. And a lot of us are in that position, right? Again, that goes to capitalistic society. We are bound to our work, a lot of us. And so, hey, I know that sometimes it's really tough. Is there something specific that has been bothering you? Is there a way that we can address that? Or hey, do you just ever need a soft place to land to talk about it? I'm a safe place, right? I can hear about it. I may not be able to change it. I may not be able to fix it, right? But like, I certainly can listen. I certainly can listen.
I think a really important part of that too is to make sure that you're using eye
Mm.
I've been learning about that over the last couple of years. Stuff, but coming at it, it goes back to kind of what you were saying about not approaching the situation as a, you're doing this, why are you doing this? And I learned not to even ask the question why, being like, what is going on that is causing this? Or, and being like, I'm noticing that this is happening. And putting it more on yourself so that it's not like weight being thrown at them. It's
Mhm.
more of like, this is something that has been weighing on me and I'm addressing it with you. I think that like adds an extra layer of padding.
Insulation, sure.
But one of the things that I used to do, I was a general manager of a Korean Mexican fusion restaurant, and I
Wow.
was only 19 years old. I don't know how I got the job, but I did. Crazy. And I was a GM. I had 26 employees, and right at the same age. So I was, if not older, yeah. So I was not only kind of looked down on. That's a long story, anyways. But I was, and one of the things that one of our favorite, the top, she'd always be in the front. She'd be the greeter, everything like that. We started to see a decline, and we were always so busy. We were up until 2 a.m. And we were in a college town, and so I would just find a way, like when kind of like the bartender finding a good part of the shift, I would always go into the stock room and like be like taking a new inventory and putting it. I'd ask for her help, and that's where we'd be in the walk-in. It wouldn't be in my office. It would be like in a neutral space so that we would be able to have the conversation rather than if you go to the office you feel like you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen if you say, hey, Alex, can I talk to you for 15 minutes after your shift? The entire shift, Alex is like, oh my gosh. Right.
Yeah, and so it's just, I told her, I was like, come to walk in with me, like, help me stock this. And while I was in there, that's when I was like, hey, this has been, what's going on? Like, I've noticed this, and I just want to help wherever I can. Like, you need a shift, an extra, like, less shift, of the week. And so just being able to, like, approach it that way. And I was like,
So,
go me for being 19 and ready.
right. So that's actually a really powerful therapeutic intervention. I want to name that. That's called the third thing, right? So when you're in a space, there's two of us, we're having a confrontation. A beautiful thing. We use this all the time with adolescents, right? Because you sit in front of an adolescent and you're like, so what's going on? And they're like, they're not saying anything. So what you need in the room is a third thing. We often would do this in our small groups. Throw a football. We're having a conversation while there's a third thing in between us, right? We're stocking the stock room together. We're putting up bottles. We're counting receipts for the night, right? And it can be as much as I'm asking you information that I can use later. Again, we're not doing this laced with agenda, but like, hey, like, did you see that game the other night? Like, I'm building rapport with you so that when I get to the point of needing, I have some history. I've built some things with you. But the third thing is a great intervention. It disarms people, right? To have this other thing we're doing. We have a task. And so our brain is stimulated on both sides, right? And not so like I'm in defense mode. That's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful idea. Okay, we're not going to have time to get to the withdrawn kitchen lead, but did y'all have any points that are relevant to what we're talking about here that might feel helpful to know?
I think this one was very interesting, mostly because like in the kitchen, them wearing long sleeves, very hot area, them scheduling themselves with all the caffeine and headaches, like that kind of is what the signs were for. But like the issues were, it seems like they don't feel like they have the support because they feel like they have to do it all themselves. Long hours, and they're in a very hot environment all the time. But when we talked about like helping, we talked about connecting with them to have a conversation, trying to ask what's bothering them, like if it's too many shifts, if it's you need 2 days consecutively off, if you need more support, if you need to hire somebody else.
Do we need to buy another fan for the kitchen? Like, is there a way to make it any cooler for you?
And then we try and offer some type of help, whether it's referring them or whether it's jumping in and helping them when they're busy, if they're overwhelmed. Like managers, they kind of got to jump in when like, So there was, I think that one, especially if it's like a really strong an employee that feels they're very capable, like your sous chef. Like I've seen my sous chef do this exact same thing. She is miserable, tired, working super late. They're doing 14-hour shifts, and then they're just like, well, no one else is going to do it. Oh, this person's useless, so I have to do it. But like she doesn't have to take that on.
And that's built into your culture, right? So if from the beginning you're not going to have a successful night unless the sous chef gets X, Y, and Z right, then the whole night's going to be off, right? That's a lot of pressure that you're putting on. Your system is built to pressure one person. It hinges on one person's performance. They're going to feel that, right? But that's a culture issue within the organization of like, it doesn't, we don't live or die by what you get done. What you do matters. We are better because you're here. But if you need to back off and take space, now you got to be able to hire someone in or tell them they can take this, or maybe this isn't the right role for you. What would that look like, right? But being realistic, I think, too. The other thing I want to say with time running out, if y'all know who Brene Brown is, love Queen Brene, worship Queen Brene, right? She says a statement that is so critical to my own life, and I say it all the time in therapy. My clients are like, you're saying it again, right? But she says, clear is kind. Clear is kind. Beating around the bush, hearsay, vague, might feel comfortable to you delivering the confrontation. Enneagram 8, confrontation. I don't love it, but it's not hard for me. That's not the same for everybody. I'm married to a peacemaker, right? Not his most comfortable skill, right? Poor guy. But it might not be your thing, right? But you are being clear is the kindest way to deliver information. Hey, I noticed it's not like, hey, I'm not really sure, but like you're really nervous and you're like that does not a strong leader make. That person is not going to have confidence in what you're speaking to them. But hey, this is what I've noticed. These are a couple ideas I've thought of. Right. Another thing I used to do, I used to be over, I worked for a church and I had volunteers under me, and there was about 100 of them. And it was really hard for me to sort of manage all the different personalities and all their different roles, right? And one of the things I did at the very beginning was do this like favorites list. Teachers do this sometimes, and it's like, what's your favorite flower? What's your favorite candy? What's your whatever? And I would every week focus on one of them. So it was like, hey, I've got your Reese's, like I was thinking about you, right? And it's just a way to say like, hey, I know you and you matter to me, right? And here's this little 50 cent, although they're like $1.50 now, which is awful. But here's $1. It's not about the amount. It's that like I thought about you. I remember you. You're important to me. So that when I have to have a critical conversation, you have trusted me. You have belief in me, right? Okay, I'm sorry we didn't get to more of the scenarios, and I want to make sure y'all can get back to work. Thank you. I think you're fully equipped to do this, and you probably already were. But yeah, just remember, this is not about diagnosis. This is about connection. And this extends far beyond the industry, just people to people. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
Next week, we'll have Sergeant Cox here. He is with the NNPD overdose unit, and he's going to talk a little bit about the drug landscape here in the city and how that will be affecting people's mental health as well. He's an awesome guy. He's a great speaker. So, you guys will be for that as well. Thank you all.
And I have business cards. So I'm on a wait list right now, but if you know someone who needs a therapist, you can always connect them to me and I can